The maid arrived at the Millionaire's mansion and froze when she saw her childhood photo in a black frame. The morning light filtered through linen curtains as Grace Foster stepped across the threshold of Whitaker Mansion, one of the most imposing properties in Chicago's Lincoln Park. She clutched her worn purse tightly, feeling out of place in the marble entryway that seemed to swallow her whole. The mansion's grandeur, with its sweeping staircase and crystal chandelier, made her shabby coat and sensible shoes seem even more inadequate. James Sullivan, the elderly butler with a rigid posture and watchful eyes, appraised her with a clinical gaze. "Mr. Charles Whitaker does not tolerate mistakes," he said, his voice firm but not unkind. "Clean in silence and ask no questions. The East Wing is off limits. You'll be paid every Friday." Grace nodded. She needed this job more than the air she breathed. Since her grandmother Helen had passed away 3 weeks ago, the small apartment they'd shared had been reclaimed by the landlord. All that remained of her past life was packed in a duffel bag at the homeless shelter, and the silver necklace hanging around her neck, a delicate chain with the letter S engraved on a small pendant. Helen's last words still haunted her. "This belongs to you, Grace. One day you'll understand why. Follow me," James said, leading her through corridors adorned with paintings that probably cost more than she'd earn in a lifetime. "You'll start with the library and Mr. Whitaker's study. He's at the office until 6. He handed her cleaning supplies from a hidden closet, demonstrating which polish to use on the mahogany furniture and which cleaner for the windows. Grace listened attentively, mentally cataloging every instruction. She couldn't afford to lose this position. The study was a somber room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a massive oak desk, facing tall windows that overlooked a manicured garden. Grace worked methodically, dusting the leather-bound books and polishing the desk's surface to a mirror shine. As she approached the white marble fireplace, a photograph in a black frame caught her attention. She moved closer, cloth in hand, and her heart stopped. It was a little girl, about 4 years old, with honey blonde pigtails sitting on a swing. She wore a white dress with yellow flowers, and around her neck, Grace's hand instinctively went to her own throat, hung the identical silver necklace with the S pendant. The girl's eyes, a peculiar shade of green-gray, mirrored Grace's own. The resemblance was uncanny, as if someone had photographed Grace as a child, yet she had no memory of such a picture. Her hands trembled as she carefully wiped dust from the frame. "What do you think you're doing?" The sharp voice made Grace jump. She whirled around to face an elegant woman with steel-gray hair pulled into a severe bun. Despite being in her late 40s, Victoria Hale's face was remarkably unlined, her navy blue business suit impeccably tailored. I'm sorry, ma'am, I was just cleaning," Grace stammered. Victoria's eyes narrowed, flicking between Grace and the photograph. Something calculative flickered across her face. "New staff should focus on their duties without getting distracted by personal items," she said coldly. "Mr. Whitaker treasures his privacy." "Yes, ma'am, I apologize." Victoria stepped closer, studying Grace with unsettling intensity. "Your name?" "Grace Foster, ma'am." "Who hired you?" "Mrs. Reynolds from the agency." Mr. Sullivan approved. "I see." Victoria cut her off. "How old are you?" 22, ma'am." Victoria's expression shifted subtly. "You may continue. When you're done here, the drawing room needs attention." The door closed behind Victoria with a decisive click. Grace released the breath she'd been holding, her gaze returning to the mysterious photograph. That evening, as she prepared to leave, Grace encountered James organizing silver in the butler's pantry. "Mr. Sullivan, may I ask about the photograph in Mr. Whitaker's study?" The little girl. James froze momentarily. "It's not my place to discuss family matters. She looks so much like..." Grace hesitated. "Like I said, not my place." His tone softened slightly. "But since you'll hear the gossip eventually, Mr. Whitaker had a daughter. She disappeared 22 years ago, when she was still a child. That photograph is his only remaining memento. 22 years. The coincidence made Grace's skin prickle. She touched her necklace unconsciously. What was her name? James gave her a warning look. "Miss Foster, curiosity is not an asset for household staff. Good night." Grace left the mansion with her mind reeling. As she walked to the bus stop, a black Mercedes pulled up alongside her. The window lowered to reveal Charles Whitaker himself, a distinguished man of 49 with salt and pepper hair and tired eyes that carried profound grief. Miss Foster, isn't it? Do you need a ride? No, thank you, sir. The bus stop is just there. Charles studied her face with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. Have we met before? You seem familiar. No, sir. Today was my first day. He frowned slightly. Well then, see you tomorrow. As the car pulled away, Grace noticed Victoria watching from the passenger seat, her gaze cold and calculating. Back at the shelter, Grace couldn't sleep. She kept seeing the little girl's face, so similar to her childhood photos. The necklace that matched hers exactly. The timeline that aligned perfectly with her age. Could it be possible? The thought seemed absurd. Something from a melodrama, not real life. Yet the evidence, the photograph, the necklace, the timing, whispered possibilities too compelling to dismiss. The next morning, Grace arrived early. While polishing the banister, she overheard Charles and Victoria arguing in the library. It's been 22 years, Charles. Victoria's voice was exasperated. This obsession isn't healthy. I know my daughter is alive, Charles insisted. I feel it, and I won't stop looking until I find her. And what about us? How many years must I wait while you chase ghosts? There is no us beyond business, Victoria. There never will be. Silence followed. Then Victoria stormed out, barely noticing Grace. Through the partially open door, Grace saw Charles standing before the fireplace, staring at the same photograph she'd seen yesterday, murmuring softly, "Sophie, my little Sophie." Grace nearly dropped her polish. Sophie, the S on her necklace. As she resumed her work with trembling hands, Grace realized she had stumbled into something far bigger than herself, a mystery that somehow, impossibly, seemed to have her at its very center. For the next 3 days, Grace moved through Whitaker Mansion like a ghost, cleaning methodically while collecting fragments of information. The name Sophie echoed in her mind like a half-forgotten melody. Each time she entered the study, the little girl in the photograph seemed to watch her with familiar eyes, her own eyes. On Thursday afternoon, while dusting the library shelves, Grace found her opportunity. James Sullivan entered with a tea tray, his steps slower than usual. "Mr. Sullivan," she began carefully, "I hope you don't mind my asking, but does your leg trouble you? My grandmother had arthritis. I used to help her with compresses." The elderly butler's stern expression softened slightly. "Old football injury, acts up in damp weather." Grace smiled sympathetically. "I could prepare a hot compress with the herbs I brought. My grandmother swore by them." 20 minutes later, James sat in the kitchen with a herbal compress on his knee, his face reflecting surprised relief. Grace worked nearby, polishing silver while building toward her real purpose. "How long have you been with the Whitaker family?" "Mr. Sullivan?" 37 years, he replied. "Served Mr. Charles's father before him." "So you were here when his daughter disappeared?" James stiffened, then sighed, the weight of old secrets visible in his posture. "I was. What happened to her?" He studied Grace with shrewd eyes. "Why the interest, Miss Foster?" Grace hesitated, then touched her necklace. "This is the only thing my grandmother left me. She said it was mine, that I'd understand someday." James's gaze fixed on the silver S pendant. His face paled. "Where did you get that?" "I've had it my whole life." "At least that's what my grandmother told me." James stood abruptly, wincing as he put weight on his bad knee. "Some questions are better left unasked, Miss Foster, for everyone's safety." "Please," Grace implored. "I just want to know about the little girl. About Sophie." The butler glanced nervously toward the doorway. "I shouldn't... Just tell me something. Anything." After a long pause, James spoke quietly. "She was 4 years old June 15th, 22 years ago. I heard the scream from the nursery myself. The nanny discovered the crib empty, Mr. Charles was devastated. His wife had died in childbirth, and Sophie was everything to him. Were there suspects? Ransom demands? Nothing concrete. The police investigated for months. Mr. Charles hired private detectives for years afterward." James lowered his voice further. Miss Victoria was especially affected. She'd grown very attached to Mr. Charles after his wife's death. Some thought perhaps too attached. The kitchen door swung open, and both Grace and James startled. Victoria Hale stood in the doorway, her smile not reaching her eyes. "How cozy," she remarked icily. "James, Charles needs you in his study." And you, Grace, weren't you assigned to the upstairs rooms today? Yes, Miss Hale. I was just helping Mr. Sullivan with his knee. How charitable. Victoria's gaze drifted to Grace's necklace, lingering there with an unreadable expression. That's a unique piece of jewelry. Grace's hand moved instinctively to cover it. A family heirloom. Is it now? Victoria's smile tightened. Fascinating how common silver can sometimes look so familiar. After Victoria and James departed, Grace hurried upstairs, unsettled by the encounter. As she cleaned the guest bedrooms, she replayed everything she'd learned. Sophie Whitaker, kidnapped at age 4, 22 years ago, matching Grace's age exactly. The identical necklace, the uncanny resemblance in the photograph. It seemed impossible, yet the evidence mounted. Could she be Sophie? Had her grandmother Helen been involved somehow? The questions multiplied, but answers remained elusive. Later that afternoon, while vacuuming the upstairs hallway, Grace noticed Charles watching her from his bedroom doorway. Unlike Victoria's calculating stare, his gaze held something different, a mixture of pain and wonder. "Miss Foster," he said, his voice slightly hoarse. "Mr. Whitaker, I'm sorry if I disturbed you." "Not at all," he hesitated. "I was wondering, where did you grow up?" "South Side, sir, with my grandmother." "And your parents?" "Never knew them, sir. Grandmother said my mother died when I was very young. She never mentioned my father." Charles nodded slowly. "Your grandmother raised you well. You have good manners." "Thank you, sir." He seemed about to say more when his phone rang. With an apologetic smile, he retreated into his room that evening. As Grace gathered her things to leave, she noticed Charles's study door ajar. The room was empty. Glancing around to ensure no one was watching, she slipped inside. The photograph on the mantel drew her like a magnet. She picked it up, studying the little girl's features against her own reflection in the glass. The resemblance was undeniable. The same heart-shaped face, the same unusual green-gray eyes, even the same small dimple on the right cheek. A noise from behind one of the bookshelves startled her. Setting down the frame, Grace discovered a concealed door, slightly ajar. Curiosity overrode caution as she pushed it open to reveal a small, hidden room. Inside, a mahogany chest stood beneath a dusty window. Grace lifted the unlocked lid to find stacks of newspapers, all featuring headlines about Sophie's disappearance. Beneath them lay an old photo album bound in blue velvet, with trembling hands. She opened it. The first page held a birth announcement. Sophie Elizabeth Whitaker, born May 2nd. Grace's birthday. Photos showed a newborn in a hospital bassinet, then the same baby at home, growing month by month, and in every picture, around the infant's neck, hung the silver S necklace. Grace's hand went to her own pendant, identical in every detail. This couldn't be coincidence. The dates, the necklace, the resemblance, all pointed to an impossible truth. She was Sophie Whitaker. A floorboard creaked behind her. Grace spun around, clutching the album, to find Victoria Hale watching from the doorway, her expression frigid. "So," Victoria said softly, "curiosity got the better of you. I'm sorry, I was just snooping through private belongings. Searching for something specific, perhaps." Victoria stepped closer. "Something about Sophie." "No, Strange, isn't it?" Victoria continued, her voice dangerously soft. "How you appear out of nowhere, with your convenient resemblance and your silver necklace. Almost as if you planned it." "I don't know what you mean." Victoria's smile was venomous. "Don't play innocent. I know a con when I see one. Whatever scheme you're plotting, it won't work." "There's no scheme," Grace insisted, heart pounding. You found nothing!" Victoria snapped. Victoria, snatching the album from Grace's hands. "And if you breathe a word of this to Charles, I'll ensure you never work in this city again. His heart can't take another false hope. Do you understand?" Grace nodded, unable to speak past the knot of fear in her throat. "Good." Victoria's composure returned like a mask sliding back into place. "Now, I believe your shift ended 15 minutes ago. See yourself out." As Grace hurried from the mansion, her mind raced. Victoria's reaction confirmed her suspicions. There was something to find, something Victoria desperately wanted to keep hidden, and somehow, Grace herself was at the center of it all. The weekend passed in a blur of anxiety and research for Grace. She spent Saturday at the public library, searching digital archives for information about Sophie Whitaker's disappearance. The kidnapping had been front-page news 22 years ago. The daughter of wealthy industrialist Charles Whitaker vanishing without a trace. The articles mentioned no ransom demands, no suspects named publicly, and no resolution. By Monday morning, Grace had developed a plan. If Victoria was hiding something, Grace needed allies and evidence. She returned to work with renewed determination, carefully maintaining a facade of subservience while watching for opportunities. "Good morning, Mr. Sullivan," Grace greeted the butler as she stored her coat in the staff closet. James nodded curtly, his manner more reserved than before. "Miss Foster, I apologize for Friday," she said quietly. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." The elderly man glanced around before responding. "Miss Victoria mentioned finding you in Mr. Charles's study. It was wrong of me," Grace admitted. "But James, I need to tell you something important. That necklace and the photos of Sophie." "Not here," James interrupted. "Meet me in the garden shed during your lunch break." The morning crawled by as Grace cleaned the dining room and parlor. Victoria was absent, having left for a business meeting downtown, while Charles sequestered himself in his home office on a conference call. At noon, Grace slipped out to the garden shed, a surprisingly well-organized space smelling of potting soil and fertilizer. James arrived moments later, closing the door firmly behind him. "Now," he said, "what's this about the necklace?" Grace reached beneath her uniform collar and pulled out her pendant. "I've had this my entire life. My grandmother said it belonged to me before I came to her." James stared at the silver S charm, his face draining of color. "It's identical." "Yes, and I was born on May 2nd, just like Sophie, and I'm 22, the same age Sophie would be now." Grace took a deep breath. "James, I think I might be Sophie Whitaker." The butler sank onto a stack of empty planting trays. "That's impossible." "Is it? The timing matches perfectly. The necklace is the same. Even Mr. Whitaker seems to sense something. He keeps looking at me strangely. If what you're suggesting is true," James said cautiously, "it would mean your grandmother was involved in a kidnapping. The possibility had tormented Grace all weekend. Or she took me in afterward, not knowing where I came from. Grandmother worked as a nurse at Mercy Hospital back then. Maybe someone brought me to her." James shook his head. "This is dangerous territory, Miss Foster. If you're wrong, you'll reopen wounds that nearly destroyed Mr. Charles. And if you're right," he glanced nervously toward the mansion, "there are people who wouldn't want this truth revealed." "You mean Victoria?" The butler's silence was answer enough. "James, please. Did you notice anything suspicious around the time Sophie disappeared? Anything involving Victoria?" After a long pause, James spoke reluctantly. "The night Sophie vanished, I saw Miss Victoria leaving the house around 2 a.m. She claimed she'd forgotten documents at her apartment and needed them for an early meeting." He hesitated. "I thought little of it at the time, but looking back..." "Did you tell the police?" "I mentioned it, but without evidence. It was merely an observation. Miss Victoria was Mr. Charles's closest confidant after his wife died. No one wanted to believe she could be involved." A noise outside startled them both. James stood quickly. "We shouldn't be seen talking privately. Victoria has eyes everywhere. The groundskeeper, the chauffeur. They report to her. What should I do?" "For now, nothing. Continue working, watching, listening. I'll try to help when I can." He moved toward the door, then turned back. "Miss Foster, if you truly are Sophie, be careful. 22 years is a long time to keep a secret. People might go to extreme lengths to ensure it stays buried." Throughout the afternoon, Grace felt Victoria's absence like a temporary reprieve. She used the opportunity to clean the rarely used guest rooms on the 3rd floor, where she discovered a locked door at the end of the hallway. As she dusted nearby picture frames, Charles appeared, startling her. "Ah, Miss Foster. Thorough as always." "Thank you." "Sir?" He nodded toward the locked door. "That was Sophie's nursery. I've kept it exactly as it was. Perhaps someday I'll be ready to go inside again." His candor surprised her. "I'm sorry for your loss, sir." "Loss suggests finality," Charles replied quietly. "I've never believed Sophie was gone forever. Call it a father's intuition." Grace's heart thundered in her chest. "Sir, may I ask you something personal? you may ask. The little girl in the photograph in your study. Your daughter. She was wearing a silver necklace with an S pendant. Charles's expression softened with remembrance. Yes, a family tradition. My mother had one, then my wife, then Sophie. The S was for Sophia, my mother's name, though we called our daughter Sophie. Grace was about to reach for her own necklace when the front doorbell chimed downstairs. Excuse me, Charles said, turning away. That will be Detective Reeves. I have an appointment. Detective. Grace watched him descend the stairs, her pulse quickening. Was Charles still investigating his daughter's disappearance after all these years? Later, while vacuuming the main staircase, Grace overheard fragments of conversation from Charles's study. Facial recognition software compared to her childhood photos. DNA testing possibilities if you have her baby hair or other samples. Keeping our investigation quiet, especially from Victoria. Grace nearly dropped the vacuum. Charles was actively searching for Sophie, and for some reason, keeping it secret from Victoria. This confirmed her suspicions that Victoria wasn't merely Charles's business partner. She was somehow connected to Sophie's disappearance. As the day ended, Grace gathered her courage and visited the office of Margaret Wilson, Charles's attorney. She'd found the address on letterhead in Charles's study. The elegant downtown office building intimidated her, but Grace pressed on, telling the receptionist she was applying for a clerical position. After a 30-minute wait, she was ushered into Margaret's office, a corner space with panoramic views of Lake Michigan. Margaret Wilson, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, assessed Grace with professional curiosity. You're interested in our administrative assistant position. Actually, Miss Wilson, I'm here about Sophie Whitaker. Margaret's expression didn't change, but she pressed a button on her phone. Carla, hold my calls. Then she leaned forward. You have exactly 2 minutes to explain why you're bringing up a traumatic event in my client's life before I call security. Grace pulled out her necklace. Because I think I'm her. To her credit, Margaret didn't laugh or dismiss her. Instead, she studied the silver pendant, then Grace's face, with the focused attention of someone solving a complex puzzle. Tell me everything, she said finally. And I mean everything. As Grace left the attorney's office an hour later, the sky darkened with approaching rain. Margaret had been skeptical but intrigued, particularly by the necklace and timing details. She'd promised to look into Grace's background discreetly. If there's even a remote possibility, Margaret had said, we need to proceed with extreme caution. Charles has had his heart broken by false hopes before, and if Victoria is somehow involved, as you suspect, we need solid evidence before making any accusations. Thunder rumbled overhead as Grace headed toward the bus stop. Lost in thought, she didn't notice the black sedan following her until it pulled alongside the curb. The passenger window lowered to reveal Victoria's cold smile. Getting caught in the rain, Grace. Let me give you a ride. Grace's instincts screamed danger, but refusing would seem suspicious. Thank you, Ms. Hale. As she settled into the leather seat, Victoria's piercing gaze made one thing abundantly clear. This wasn't an act of kindness. It was a warning. I saw you leaving Margaret Wilson's office, Victoria said pleasantly. Curious place for a maid to visit. Grace's blood ran cold. Victoria had been watching her. Rain drummed against the car windows as Victoria navigated downtown Chicago traffic. Grace gripped her purse tightly, mind racing for a plausible explanation. I was applying for a clerical position, she said, hoping her voice sounded steadier than it felt. The cleaning work is only temporary. Victoria's crimson lips curved into a smile that never reached her eyes. Is that so, ambitious girl? Though I wonder why you choose Charles's attorney specifically. She took a sharp turn, sending Grace against the door. Quite the coincidence. The agency recommended... Please, Victoria cut her off. Let's not insult each other's intelligence. You've been snooping around the mansion, asking questions about Sophie, and now visiting Margaret Wilson. I'm not a fool, Grace. The sedan stopped at a red light. Outside, pedestrians hurried through the downpour, oblivious to the tense confrontation unfolding inside the luxury vehicle. What exactly do you want? Victoria asked, her tone deceptively conversational. Money. Is this some elaborate blackmail scheme? I don't want anything, Grace protested. I'm just trying to... To what? Play detective. Victoria's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Charles has suffered enough. He's finally starting to heal. And I won't let some opportunistic girl with a passing resemblance reopen those wounds. The light changed, and Victoria accelerated aggressively. Instead of heading toward Grace's neighborhood, she turned toward Lakeshore Drive. "Where are we going?" Grace asked. Unable to hide her alarm, Victoria's smile tightened. "Just a little detour. I think we need to understand each other better." The car pulled into a secluded viewpoint overlooking the storm-tossed lake. Victoria killed the engine, then turned to face Grace fully. 22 years ago, she said quietly. Charles lost everything that mattered to him. I was the one who helped him rebuild his life, his company, his will to live. I've stood by him through absolute devastation. Her voice hardened. "I won't let anyone threaten that." "I'm not threatening anything," Grace insisted. "But if there's even a possibility that I could be..." "There isn't." Victoria's tone was final. "Sophie Whitaker is gone. Whatever game you're playing, it ends now. Or I'll personally ensure you regret it." She restarted the car. "Now, where shall I drop you?" Grace gave an address 3 blocks from her actual shelter. Unwilling to reveal where she slept, as she exited the car, Victoria leaned across the seat. "One more thing. You're fired. Don't return to the mansion." The sedan peeled away, leaving Grace standing in the pouring rain, jobless and more convinced than ever that Victoria was hiding something crucial. Detective Michael Reeves took a long sip of coffee as he reviewed his notes in a cramped hotel room near O'Hare. Charles Whitaker was paying handsomely for this investigation, but had insisted on absolute discretion, especially from Victoria Hale. Spread across the bed were old case files, witness statements, and photographs related to Sophie Whitaker's disappearance. 22 years cold, but Charles remained convinced his daughter was alive. Reeves pulled out his latest lead, Elena Martinez, Sophie's nanny at the time of the kidnapping. After the incident, she'd returned to Mexico, effectively disappearing until now. His contacts had finally located her in Guadalajara, running a small daycare center. His phone rang, an unknown number. "Reeves? Detective? This is Victoria Hale." He straightened, surprised. "Ms. Hale, what can I do for you? Let's skip the pretense. I know Charles hired you to reopen Sophie's case." Her voice was silky, controlled. "I'm concerned about Charles's well-being. These investigations only reopen old wounds. With respect, Ms. Hale, my client relationship is confidential." "Of course." A pause. "What if I offered to double whatever Charles is paying you for the same investigation naturally, but with regular reports to me? To help protect Charles from unnecessary disappointment?" Reeves hesitated. The offer was tempting, but something felt off. Why the secrecy from Charles? He's fragile, emotionally speaking. I've spent decades helping him recover. I simply want to filter information appropriately. "I'll consider it," Reeves said noncommittally. "Excellent. You're looking into Elena Martinez, correct? In Guadalajara?" The detective's blood ran cold. No one should know that. He'd only discovered it yesterday. "How did you—" "I have resources, detective. Let me know what you find." The line went dead, leaving Reeves deeply unsettled. He stared at the file photos, particularly the shot of Victoria standing beside Charles at a press conference after Sophie's disappearance. Her hand rested possessively on his shoulder, her expression not quite matching the gravity of the moment. Reeves reached for his phone again. This situation was more complex than Charles had indicated. The next morning, Grace awoke with renewed determination. Losing her job at the mansion was a setback, but she refused to abandon her search for the truth. If Victoria thought firing her would end this, she was mistaken. After a quick shower in the shelter's communal bathroom, Grace headed to the Chicago Public Library. Using their computers, she dug deeper into old newspaper accounts of Sophie's disappearance. Most articles repeated the same basic facts, but one small piece in the Tribune caught her attention. "Nanny last to see missing Whitaker child." The article named Elena Martinez as the last person to check on Sophie before the kidnapping was discovered. It mentioned she'd been cleared of suspicion, but had subsequently returned to Mexico. Grace printed the article, then used the library phone to call Margaret Wilson's office. "It's Grace Foster," she said when the receptionist answered. "Is Mrs. Wilson available?" To her surprise, Margaret took the call immediately. "Grace, I was about to contact you. Can you meet me for lunch?" An hour later, they sat in a quiet corner of a downtown bistro, speaking in hushed tones. "Victoria fired me," Grace explained. Stirring her untouched soup, Margaret nodded. "I suspected she might. Charles doesn't know." "I don't think so. She intercepted me leaving your office." "That's concerning." Margaret opened her leather portfolio. "I've been looking into your background." "Grace, Helen Foster did work as a nurse at Mercy Hospital during the time of Sophie's disappearance. She left Chicago shortly after, moving to Indiana for several years before returning to the South Side. That timing can't be coincidental," Grace said. "No, it can't." Margaret slid a document across the table. "I also found this. Your birth certificate lists your mother as Jane Doe, and father as unknown. Helen Foster became your legal guardian when you were approximately 4 years old, right around the time Sophie vanished." Grace stared at the document, her hand instinctively reaching for her necklace. "This supports everything I've been thinking." "It's suggestive but not conclusive," Margaret cautioned. "We'd need DNA testing to be certain." "I found something too." Grace showed her the article about Elena Martinez. "The nanny, she's in Mexico now." Margaret's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Charles mentioned his detective located her recently. Could she identify me? Would she remember what Sophie looked like? Possibly she cared for Sophie from birth until the kidnapping." Margaret checked her watch. "Speaking of Charles, I have news. He wants to meet with you." Grace's pulse quickened. "He does, why?" "He won't say exactly, but after you were fired, James told him about your necklace. Charles is intrigued. He's asked you to come to his downtown office tomorrow at noon. Victoria rarely visits that location. I'll be there." As they parted, Margaret squeezed Grace's hand. "Be careful. If you really are Sophie Whitaker, someone went to extraordinary lengths to hide that fact. That person may not be finished yet." That evening, in Guadalajara, Elena Martinez closed her small daycare center, waving goodbye to the last parent as she wiped down tiny tables. Her phone rang. "Bueno, Elena Martinez? This is Detective Michael Reeves from Chicago. I'm investigating the Sophie Whitaker case." Elena's hand froze mid-wipe. "That was many years ago, senor. I understand. But new evidence has emerged. I believe the child may have been found." A long silence followed. "I always prayed for this," Elena finally said. "Sophie was like my own daughter. I need to ask you some questions about the night she disappeared." "I've told everything to the police back then," Elena said defensively. "Not everything," Reeves countered. "Your original statement mentioned hearing raised voices from the study earlier that evening. You never specified whose voices." Another pause. "It was Mr. Charles and another man. They were arguing about Sophie." "What man?" "I don't know. But after that night, he never came to the house again. And then Sophie was taken." Reeves leaned forward, scribbling notes. "Would you be willing to return to Chicago to assist our investigation?" Elena hesitated. "It would be difficult with my business here. Mr. Whitaker would cover all expenses. Your testimony could be crucial." "Let me consider it," she said finally. "But Detective, be careful. There was always something strange about Miss Victoria and her interest in the child, the way she watched Sophie. It wasn't natural." As Reeves ended the call, he didn't notice the dark sedan parked across from Elena's daycare, or the figure inside making a call of their own. The Whitaker Enterprises headquarters dominated a prime corner of Chicago's financial district, 52 floors of steel and glass reflecting the midday sun. Grace checked her appearance one last time in the lobby's mirrored wall, smoothing her only presentable outfit, a navy blue dress she'd purchased from a thrift shop that morning. The executive elevator whisked her to the top floor, where a sleek reception area awaited. Before Grace could approach the desk, Charles himself emerged from a conference room. "Miss Foster," he greeted her warmly. "Thank you for coming." He led her into a corner office with panoramic views of Lake Michigan, unlike the dark woods and traditional styling of the mansion. This space featured clean lines and modern furniture, a study in contrasts that seemed to reflect different aspects of Charles himself. "Please, sit." He gestured to a seating area by the windows. "Coffee?" "No, thank you." Charles settled opposite her, studying her face with undisguised curiosity. "James told me Victoria terminated your employment. That wasn't her decision to make." "It's all right, Mr. Whitaker. I understand." "No," he interrupted gently. "You don't. Victoria sometimes exceeds her authority. She means well, but... He trailed off, then refocused. James mentioned you have a necklace similar to one my daughter wore. Grace's hand went to her throat. Slowly, she pulled the silver pendant from beneath her collar, allowing the S to catch the light. Charles's breath caught audibly. He reached toward it, then stopped himself. "May I?" When Grace nodded, he leaned closer, examining the delicate pendant. His fingers trembled slightly as they hovered near the silver piece. "This is identical to Sophie's," he whispered. "Where did you get it?" "My grandmother gave it to me. She said I was wearing it when I came to her." Charles sat back, his expression a complex mixture of hope and caution. "Miss Foster, Grace, I've learned not to grasp at coincidences over the years. Many young women have claimed to be Sophie, usually hoping for financial gain. I'm not claiming anything," Grace said quickly. "I honestly don't know who I am, but there are similarities that can't be ignored." Indeed, Charles opened a folder on the coffee table, revealing what appeared to be her employment application. "You were born May 2nd, the same day as Sophie. You grew up with a grandmother who became your guardian when you were approximately 4, the age Sophie was when she disappeared. And now this necklace." "There's more," Grace admitted. "When I saw Sophie's photograph in your study, it was like looking at my own childhood pictures." Charles nodded slowly. "I noticed the resemblance immediately. It's why I continued observing you, why I asked James to ensure Victoria didn't actually dismiss you." He leaned forward. "Grace, would you consent to DNA testing? I still have Sophie's baby hair and other samples." The question hung between them, weighted with 22 years of possibility. "Yes," Grace answered without hesitation. "I need to know the truth as much as you do." Relief washed over Charles's features. "Thank you. I've arranged for a private lab to handle everything confidentially." He hesitated. "Until we have results. Would you consider staying at the Lake Forest house? It's our second property, rarely used except in summer. Victoria never goes there." "You're concerned about Victoria knowing." A shadow crossed his face. "Let's just say I prefer discretion until we have certainty. The guest house is fully furnished. You'd have privacy, security, and be close enough for us to get acquainted." The offer tempted Grace immensely. The shelter was becoming increasingly uncomfortable, and Victoria knowing her whereabouts made her nervous. "All right," she agreed. "When can I move in?" "Today, if that suits you. James will make the arrangements." As Charles walked her back to the elevator, he paused, his expression suddenly vulnerable. "Grace, I want you to know, regardless of what the tests show, I appreciate your honesty and courage in coming forward." In the lobby, Grace found James waiting beside a black Bentley. "The Lake Forest house, Miss Foster. You knew he would offer." The butler's eyes crinkled slightly. "Mr. Charles can be predictable in his unpredictability." He opened the car door. "Do you have belongings to collect?" "Just a small bag at the shelter." An hour later, after retrieving her meager possessions, Grace watched Chicago's urban landscape give way to the manicured estates of Lake Forest. James drove through wrought iron gates that opened to reveal a stunning colonial-style mansion overlooking Lake Michigan. "The main house," James explained, continuing past it toward a smaller but equally elegant structure nestled among old oak trees. "And this is the guest house." Inside, Grace found a beautifully appointed 2-bedroom cottage with a fully stocked kitchen and cozy living room. For someone who'd been staying in a homeless shelter, it was almost overwhelming. "Mr. Charles thought you might need these as well," James said, placing a credit card and cell phone on the counter. "For expenses and communication, he's programmed his private number." After James departed, Grace explored her temporary home, still processing the day's events. She'd gone from unemployed and homeless to living in a luxury guest house with Charles Whitaker essentially treating her as a long-lost daughter, which she might very well be. That evening, Grace sat on the porch swing, watching twilight descend over the lake. The phone James had given her vibrated with a text from Margaret Wilson. "DNA samples scheduled for tomorrow 10 a.m. My office, transportation arranged." Grace was typing a response when a noise from the garden path startled her. James emerged from the shadows, his expression grave. "Miss Foster, forgive the intrusion." "James, is everything all right?" The elderly butler glanced around nervously before joining her on the porch. I needed to speak with you, away from the main house, away from listening ears. What is it? James sank onto a wicker chair, suddenly looking every one of his years. I've served the Whitaker family faithfully for nearly 4 decades. I've kept their secrets, protected their interests, but some burdens become too heavy with time. Grace leaned forward. You know something about Sophie's disappearance? I saw Victoria that night, he said quietly. Not just leaving the house at 2 a.m. as I mentioned before. I saw her earlier, arguing with a man in the garden. A man I'd never seen before. They were discussing Sophie. When Victoria noticed me, she sent me to fetch wine from the cellar. By the time I returned, the man was gone. Did you tell the police? I tried. But Victoria, she knew things about my past. Mistakes I'd made before coming to work for the Whitakers. She implied she would reveal everything if I spoke about the man. She blackmailed you. James nodded miserably. Later that night, after the household was asleep, I heard movement upstairs. I thought it was Victoria returning from her apartment. But when I checked, I saw her carrying something to her car. Something wrapped in a blanket. His voice faltered. Sophie's favorite blanket. Grace felt a chill despite the warm evening. You think Victoria took Sophie? I've never had proof. Just suspicions and fragments I witnessed. But in the days after Sophie vanished, Victoria became Mr. Charles's closest confidant. She never left his side during the investigation, always present during police interviews. Controlling the narrative, Grace murmured. Precisely. James straightened, resolve hardening his features. I've lived with this guilt for 22 years if you truly are Sophie. If Victoria stole you from this family, then it's time the truth came to light. Will you tell Charles what you saw? When the DNA results confirm your identity? Yes. Until then. He glanced toward the main house. Victoria still wields considerable influence. We must proceed cautiously. As James prepared to leave, Grace remembered something. The man in the garden. Did you hear any name mentioned? The butler frowned. Just once, Victoria called him Samuel. I never caught a surname. After James departed, Grace remained on the porch, pieces of the puzzle shifting in her mind. Victoria arguing with a mysterious Samuel. Victoria carrying a blanket-wrapped bundle to her car. Helen Foster suddenly acquiring a 4-year-old child. Her thoughts were interrupted by another text message. This one from an unknown number. I know who you really are, and why Victoria took you. Meet me tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Navy Pier Ferris wheel. Come alone. A. Grace stared at the cryptic message. Heart pounding. Who was E? And what did they know about her past? In the distance, lightning flickered over the lake, promising a storm by morning. Somehow, it seemed fitting. The calm in her life was ending, and whatever truth awaited would break like thunder across everything she thought she knew. Morning arrived with hammering rain against the guest house windows. Grace had barely slept. The mysterious text message replaying in her mind. Who was A? And could they be trusted? The timing was too convenient to be coincidental. At precisely 9 a.m., a Silvertown car pulled into the driveway. The driver, a taciturn man in a dark suit, confirmed he'd been sent by Margaret Wilson. As they drove toward downtown Chicago, Grace studied the mysterious text message again. Navy Pier tonight, public enough to be relatively safe, but with plenty of escape routes if things went wrong. Margaret's office buzzed with quiet efficiency as Grace was ushered into a private conference room. Charles arrived moments later, his manner restrained but hopeful. I've arranged for the testing to be conducted here, Margaret explained, gesturing to a woman in a lab coat arranging equipment on a side table. Dr. Abrams is discreet and highly respected. The results should be available within 48 hours. The sample collection was quick. Cheek swabs for Grace, while Charles provided a small envelope containing a lock of baby hair preserved in Sophie's baby book. Throughout the process, Grace noticed Charles watching her with an intensity that was both touching and uncomfortable. While we wait for the results, Margaret said as Dr. Abrams packed her equipment. We should discuss next steps and contingency plans. Charles leaned forward. Assuming the tests confirm what we suspect, there will be legal proceedings to establish Grace's identity, and questions about how Sophie ended up with Helen Foster. More immediately, Margaret added, we should prepare for Victoria's reaction. If she was involved in Sophie's disappearance, She won't simply accept Grace's return. Grace hesitated, then decided to share the mysterious message. "I received this last night," she said, showing them the text. "From someone signed E." Charles and Margaret exchanged alarmed glances. "E could be Elena," Charles said quietly. "Elena Martinez, Sophie's nanny. My detective located her in Mexico recently. But she's in Guadalajara," Margaret objected. "Why would she suddenly be in Chicago, contacting Grace? Perhaps she learned about the reopened investigation." Charles turned to Grace. "You can't meet this person alone. It could be dangerous. Or worse, a trap set by Victoria." "I agree it's risky," Grace admitted. "But if it is Elena, she might have crucial information. She was the last person to see Sophie before the kidnapping." After heated debate, they reached a compromise. Grace would meet E at Navy Pier, but with Detective Reeves monitoring from a distance, Charles insisted on providing Grace with a panic button disguised as a fashionable smartwatch. "Press this button," he demonstrated, "and both Detective Reeves and building security will respond immediately." As the meeting concluded, Charles asked Grace to join him for lunch. They walked to a small French bistro a few blocks away, taking a private table in the back. For the first time, their conversation ventured beyond Sophie's disappearance to more personal territory. "Tell me about your grandmother," Charles said as they waited for their food. "What kind of woman was Helen Foster?" Grace smiled, memories warming her voice. "Kind but strict. She worked double shifts as a nurse to send me to a decent school. Never married. No other family. She rarely spoke about her past. And when I asked about my parents, she'd just say my mother died young, and my father wasn't in the picture. Did she ever mention how you came to her?" "Only that I needed a home, and she needed a child. I assumed she'd adopted me through proper channels. It never occurred to me." Grace's voice faltered. Charles reached across the table, briefly touching her hand. "Whatever Helen's involvement, she clearly loved you." "She did. That's what makes this so confusing. If she knew I was Sophie Whitaker, why keep me from my real family? Grandmother wasn't a criminal. Perhaps she wasn't aware of your true identity," Charles suggested. "If Victoria orchestrated the kidnapping but used intermediaries, Helen might have genuinely believed she was helping an orphaned child." The possibility eased some of Grace's turmoil. They spent the remainder of lunch discovering connections, shared preferences for classical music, identical allergies to shellfish, even the same habit of folding napkins into precise triangles. "My wife used to do that," Charles noted with a sad smile. "Sophie learned it from watching her, even after Elizabeth died." "I wish I could remember her," Grace said softly. "If I am Sophie, Elizabeth would have loved the woman you've become," Charles replied with certainty. "Strong, determined, compassionate." As they parted outside the restaurant, Charles surprised Grace with an impulsive hug. "Be careful tonight," he murmured. "I've lost you once already." Navy Pier glittered with lights reflecting off Lake Michigan as Grace arrived that evening. Despite the cheerful carnival atmosphere, she felt exposed and vulnerable walking toward the Ferris wheel. Detective Reeves had positioned himself near a hot dog stand, pretending to check sports scores on his phone while maintaining visual contact. Grace purchased a ticket and joined the short line for the Ferris wheel, scanning faces for anyone who might be the mysterious A. When her turn came to board, she was still alone, disappointed. She settled into a gondola, wondering if the meeting had been called off. Just as the attendant was securing the door, a petite woman with silver-streaked black hair hurried forward. "Wait, please, I'm with her," she called in accented English. The woman slipped into the seat opposite Grace as the Ferris wheel lurched into motion. Up close, Grace could see she was in her early 60s, with warm brown eyes and a nervous expression. "You are Grace Foster?" the woman asked quietly. Grace nodded. "Are you E. Elena Martinez?" She glanced down at the pier, shrinking as they ascended. "Thank you for coming alone." "I'm not exactly alone," Grace admitted, gesturing subtly toward Reeves. "Security precaution." Elena tensed, then relaxed slightly. "Understandable. I should have known Charles would protect you." Her gaze lingered on Grace's face. "Dios mío, you look so much like your mother." "You knew my mother, Elizabeth Whitaker." "See, very well. I cared for you from the day you were born until—" Elena's voice caught. "Until that terrible night." The Ferris wheel reached its apex, pausing to give riders the panoramic view of Chicago's skyline, suspended between sky and earth. Grace felt equally suspended between her past and future. "Were you there when I was taken?" Elena shook her head. "I had checked on you at 8 p.m. You were sleeping peacefully. By midnight, when I checked again before ending my shift, you were gone." Tears glistened in her eyes. "I never forgave myself. It wasn't your fault," Grace said gently. "But Elena, why contact me in secret? Why not go directly to Charles?" "Because there is more to this story than anyone knows." Elena reached into her purse, withdrawing a weathered photograph. "This was taken the day before you disappeared. I found Miss Victoria in your nursery, standing over your crib. She didn't know I was watching." Grace studied the grainy image of a younger Victoria, her expression chillingly possessive as she leaned over what must have been Sophie's crib. "She was obsessed with Charles," Elena continued. "After your mother died, Victoria tried to become his everything, but Charles lived only for you." She reclaimed the photo. "That evening, before you vanished, I overheard an argument. Victoria and a man. They were fighting about you." "A man named Samuel?" Grace asked. Remembering James's revelation, Elena's eyes widened with surprise. "Yes, Samuel Valenti. He was your father's business partner, but there was bad blood between them." She lowered her voice, though they were completely alone in their slow revolution above the city. "Samuel claimed you were actually his daughter, not Charles's." "What?" Grace felt the world tilt beneath her. "Your mother and Samuel, they were close before she married Charles. When you were born, Samuel demanded a paternity test. Charles refused." Elena sighed heavily. "The night you disappeared, both men had been at the house for a dinner party. They argued horribly. Victoria witnessed everything. The Ferris wheel began its descent, their time running short. Elena, do you think Victoria took me to protect Charles from the truth? I don't know. But 2 days after you vanished, Samuel Valenti died in a car accident. The paternity question died with him." Elena gripped Grace's hand. "I returned to Chicago because Detective Reeves contacted me, but someone followed me from Mexico yesterday. My hotel room was ransacked. Someone knows I'm here, and they're frightened of what I might reveal." As their gondola approached the loading platform, Elena pressed a small key into Grace's palm. "Safety deposit box. First National Bank. All the evidence I've gathered over the years. If anything happens to me, promise you'll retrieve it. Elena, you should come with me now. We can protect you." The woman shook her head. "Too dangerous. I'll contact you again when it's safe." As they disembarked, Elena whispered one final bombshell. "Watch Charles carefully. He might not be the victim in this story." Before Grace could respond, Elena disappeared into the crowd, leaving her standing alone with a key, and even more questions than before. Detective Reeves navigated through the departing Navy Pier crowd, catching up with Grace near the parking lot. "What happened? Who was that woman?" "Elena Martinez." Grace's mind still reeled from the revelations. "Sophie's former nanny. Damn it." Reeves scanned the area. "I've been trying to reach her for days." "How did she find you?" "I don't know." Grace clutched the safety deposit box key in her pocket. "But she's afraid for her life. Someone followed her from Mexico." In the detective's car, Grace relayed Elena's revelations. Victoria's obsession, the dispute between Charles and his business partner Samuel Valenti, the shocking suggestion that Sophie might have been Samuel's biological daughter. Reeves listened intently, making notes. "This complicates things. If there was a paternity dispute, it expands our list of potential kidnappers beyond Victoria." Elena implied Charles might not be innocent in all this. Did she elaborate? No. She ran off before explaining. Grace stared out at the passing streetlights. "Detective, what do you know about Samuel Valenti's death?" "Single vehicle accident 2 days after Sophie's disappearance. Car went off Lakeshore Drive into the water. Ruled accidental, though the timing always raised eyebrows. Convenient timing if someone wanted to eliminate a paternity claim." "Very." Reeves tapped his steering wheel thoughtfully. "I'll dig deeper into Valenti. Meanwhile, we should check out that safety deposit box." "Tomorrow," Grace decided. "After I speak with Charles." Reeves dropped her at the Lake Forest guest house with a promise to collect her in the morning. Inside, Grace found a text message from Margaret Wilson. "DNA results expedited. Available tomorrow, 1 p.m. Charles wants you both present. Sleep proved elusive that night. Grace kept replaying Elena's words. Watch Charles carefully. He might not be the victim in this story. Could the gentle, grief-stricken man who'd welcomed her so warmly be hiding darker truths? By morning, she'd reached a decision before confronting Charles with Elena's revelations. She needed to see what evidence the safety deposit box contained. Detective Reeves arrived at 9 a.m., and they drove to First National Bank in downtown Chicago. The process was straightforward. Elena had registered the box under her name with Grace listed as an authorized accessor. Inside a private viewing room, Grace opened the small metal container to find a leather journal and a USB drive. Elena's diary, she explained, lifting the journal. And presumably digital evidence. They started with the diary. Elena had meticulously documented her time with the Whitaker family, including detailed observations about the dynamics between Charles, Victoria, and baby Sophie. Certain entries stood out. March 15th, 2 months before Sophie's disappearance. Victoria asked strange questions today about Sophie's features. Who she resembled more, Charles or Elizabeth? When I said she had Samuel's eyes, Victoria became very upset, told me never to mention that resemblance to Charles. April 22nd, Charles and Samuel had another argument in the study. Charles shouted, "She's my daughter." Samuel responded, "A DNA test would prove otherwise." Victoria was listening at the door, seemed almost pleased by their conflict. May 30, 2 weeks before the disappearance. Found Victoria in Sophie's room again last night, just watching her sleep when I entered. She claimed she heard crying. Sophie was perfectly peaceful. Victoria's interest in the child feels wrong somehow. Not affectionate, but calculating. June 14th, the night of the disappearance. Dinner party was tense. Samuel brought documents, legal papers of some kind. Charles refused to accept them. Victoria mediated, unusually diplomatic. Later heard heated voices from the garden. Victoria and someone else. Checked Sophie at 8 p.m. All normal. By midnight, she was gone. The final entries detailed Elena's desperate questioning by police. Charles's breakdown, Victoria taking control of the household, and Elena's eventual return to Mexico after receiving what she described as a warning visit from men claiming to represent Whitaker Enterprises security. She was forced to leave the country, Reeves concluded, closing the journal. By Victoria's people, presumably, Grace added. They turned to the USB drive, which contained photographs, scanned documents, and a video file. The photos showed Sophie at various ages, from newborn to toddler. In several, Grace could see the resemblance to her own childhood pictures, unmistakable confirmation of her identity. The documents proved more revealing. Correspondence between Samuel Valenti and his attorney regarding a potential paternity suit, and, most shockingly, a copy of an unofficial paternity test dated 1 week before Sophie's disappearance. He had the test done secretly, Grace realized, scanning the report, using a hair sample probably obtained without permission. And the results? Reeves asked. Grace's finger traced the highlighted conclusion. 99.9% probability of paternity between subject Samuel Valenti and minor child Sophie Whitaker. So it's true, she whispered. Charles isn't my biological father, Samuel Valenti was. The video file featured Elena herself, speaking directly to the camera in heavily accented English. If you are watching this, Grace, it means you have found your way back to Chicago and the truth. I was too afraid to come forward for many years. The night you disappeared, I believe Victoria took you to prevent Samuel from claiming you as his daughter. Charles may or may not have known of her plan. I cannot be certain. What I do know is that Samuel's death 2 days later was no accident. The same men who suggested I returned to Mexico were seen near his car that day. Elena's recorded image leaned closer to the camera. Be careful who you trust. Victoria is dangerous. Yes, but Charles had much to lose if Samuel's paternity claim became public. The scandal would have devastated him, cost him custody, possibly even affected his company. Always remember, powerful men protect their interests above all else. The video ended, leaving Grace and Reeves in stunned silence. This changes everything, Grace finally said. If Charles knew about the paternity test results, he would have had motive to prevent Samuel from claiming his rights to you, Reeves finished. though kidnapping his own daughter seems extreme. Not if Victoria convinced him it was the only way. Grace checked her watch. I'm supposed to meet Charles and Margaret in an hour for the official DNA results. Should I cancel? No, Reeves decided. Act normal. Don't reveal what we found yet. Let's see if the tests confirm you're Sophie first. Then we'll approach this strategically. Margaret Wilson's office felt impossibly tense as Grace sat across from Charles, waiting for Dr. Abrams to reveal the DNA comparison results. Charles maintained a calm exterior, but his frequent glances at Grace betrayed his nervous anticipation. Thank you for your patience, Dr. Abrams began, opening a sealed envelope. DNA analysis is quite definitive in determining familial relationships. Charles reached over, briefly squeezing Grace's hand. Based on the samples provided, Dr. Abrams continued, I can confirm with 99.7% certainty that Grace Foster is indeed Sophie Whitaker. Charles made a small, choked sound, somewhere between a gasp and a sob. I knew it, he whispered. I knew you'd come back to me, Margaret beamed. This is wonderful news. We can begin the legal process to restore Sophie's identity immediately. Grace forced a smile, her mind racing. The DNA results confirmed she was Sophie Whitaker, but Elena's evidence suggested she was biologically Samuel Valenti's daughter, not Charles's. How could both be true? There's something else, Dr. Abrams added, studying her report. An anomaly in the genetic markers. Charles frowned. What kind of anomaly? While the maternal DNA shows clear markers consistent with Elizabeth Whitaker's family line. Based on the historical samples you provided, the paternal markers show inconsistencies. Meaning what, exactly? Margaret asked. Dr. Abrams chose her words carefully, meaning that while Grace is definitely Sophie Whitaker, the child born to Elizabeth Whitaker, the paternity indicator suggests Charles is not her biological father. The revelation landed like a bomb in the quiet office. Charles's face drained of color, his body going completely still. Margaret looked stunned, then immediately concerned for her client. There must be some mistake, she insisted. I ran the comparison 3 times, Dr. Abrams replied apologetically. The science is conclusive. Charles finally spoke, his voice hollow. Samuel. Grace watched him carefully. Samuel Valenti. His gaze snapped to her face. How do you know that name? Before she could respond, Charles's phone rang. He glanced at it, expression darkening further. Victoria, he said, then declined the call. She's been calling repeatedly since this morning. Does she know about the DNA testing? Margaret asked. I didn't tell her, but... He shrugged helplessly. Victoria has ways of learning things. The phone rang again immediately. This time, Charles answered on speaker. Not now, Victoria. Charles, listen to me. Victoria's voice sounded uncharacteristically frantic. Elena Martinez is dead. Car accident on Lakeshore Drive an hour ago. Grace gasped. Detective Reeves had dropped her at Margaret's office before heading to meet Elena at her hotel. The police think it might not be an accident, Victoria continued. They're asking questions about her connection to you, about Sophie's case being reopened. Charles, we need to talk now. I'll call you back, Charles said tersely, ending the call. He stared at Grace, something shifting in his expression, the warmth replaced by guarded calculation. You met with Elena, he stated rather than asked. What did she tell you? The atmosphere in Margaret's office crackled with tension as Grace met Charles's piercing gaze. His question hung in the air. What did Elena tell you? For a moment, Grace considered lying, but something in Charles's expression, a flicker of the same calculation she'd seen in Victoria's eyes, made her opt for a partial truth. She gave me evidence that I'm Sophie Whitaker, Grace replied carefully. Evidence of what nature? Photographs, her personal journal, documentation from my childhood. Charles nodded slowly, his composure returning despite the bombshell about his non-paternity. And did Elena mention Samuel Valenti? She said he was your business partner. Former partner, Charles corrected. We had a falling out, Margaret interjected, her attorney instincts sensing dangerous territory. Perhaps we should table this discussion until everyone has had time to process the DNA results. No, Charles said firmly. I need to know what Grace has learned. He turned back to her. Did Elena suggest I was involved in Sophie's disappearance? Grace chose her words with extreme care. She implied there was more to the story than a simple kidnapping, that Samuel Valenti claimed to be my biological father, which the DNA test just confirmed, Margaret noted. Charles rubbed his temples, suddenly looking every day of his 49 years. This is not how I wanted this to unfold. Charles, Margaret said gently, as your attorney, I advise you to be very thoughtful about what you say next. He shot her a grateful look before addressing Grace. Samuel and I founded Whitaker Valenti Partners together straight out of business school. We were best friends, practically brothers. Then he fell in love with Elizabeth, the woman I'd been dating for 2 years. Grace listened intently as Charles continued. Elizabeth chose me, and Samuel seemed to accept it. He was best man at our wedding. But after Elizabeth died in childbirth, Samuel started making insinuations about your paternity. I refused to entertain the possibility. You were my daughter, on your birth certificate, in my heart, in every way that mattered. But Samuel wanted proof, Grace prompted. He became obsessed with the idea. As you grew, certain features, your eyes particularly, resembled him more than me. 2 months before you disappeared, he threatened a legal paternity suit. Charles's expression hardened. I would have lost you. So you took matters into your own hands. The question escaped, before Grace could censor herself. Charles looked genuinely shocked. Is that what Elena told you? That I kidnapped my own daughter rather than share custody? She suggested it was possible. I loved you more than anything in this world. Grace, I would never have separated you from your home. His voice cracked with emotion that seemed genuine. The night you disappeared destroyed me. For 22 years, I've searched for you. Margaret's phone buzzed with a text. She checked it, frowning. Detective Reeves is downstairs. He says it's urgent. Minutes later, Reeves burst into the office, his expression grim. Elena Martinez's death was no accident. Her brake lines were cut, and I have security footage from her hotel showing Victoria Hale entering the premises last night. Leaving 30 minutes later, Victoria, Charles's disbelief seemed sincere. That's impossible. The footage is clear, Reeves insisted. And there's more. Forensic analysis of Samuel Valenti's fatal accident 22 years ago shows the same MO. Cut brake lines. The case was reopened last year when a maintenance worker at the parking garage came forward with new information, but the investigation stalled. Are you suggesting Victoria was responsible for both deaths? Margaret asked. It fits a pattern, Reeves replied. Anyone threatening her relationship with Charles or the secret of Sophie's disappearance ends up dead. Charles appeared genuinely stunned. Victoria and I have been business partners for decades. She's been obsessively loyal, yes. But a murderer, I can't believe it, Grace interrupted, pulling out her phone. I recorded my conversation with Elena last night. She played the audio, capturing Elena's assertions about Victoria's fixation on Charles and presence in Sophie's nursery the night of the kidnapping. When the recording ended, Charles buried his face in his hands. All these years, she was beside me, watching me search for you, knowing. The evidence is compelling but still circumstantial, Margaret cautioned. We need more proof of Victoria's direct involvement. Elena said Victoria might not have acted alone, Grace added, watching Charles's reaction closely. That you might have known. His head snapped up. That's absurd. I've spent millions trying to find you. Or creating the appearance of trying, Reeves suggested. It's a common tactic. Kidnapping cases where a parent is involved often feature elaborate searches to deflect suspicion. This is outrageous, Charles stood, indignant. I just discovered my daughter is alive after 22 years, and you're accusing me of orchestrating her kidnapping. No one is making accusations, Margaret soothed. We're exploring all possibilities. Well, explore this possibility, Charles countered. Victoria was obsessively in love with me. After Elizabeth died, she expected us to become a couple, but I was focused entirely on Sophie. When Samuel threatened a paternity suit, Victoria saw an opportunity to save me from losing Sophie by taking her away herself. The theory fit the facts uncomfortably well. Grace studied Charles, trying to discern if his outrage was genuine or performative. Reeves checked his watch. Victoria's expecting you to call her back. This could be an opportunity. For what? Charles asked. A recorded conversation? Try to get her talking about Elena's death, about Sophie's disappearance. Charles hesitated, then nodded. I'll do it, but not from here. Victoria knows I'd be at Margaret's office for the DNA results. She'll be suspicious if I call from here. My apartment? Margaret suggested. It's 3 blocks away. We can set up recording equipment there. An hour later, in Margaret's elegantly appointed living room, Charles sat before a laptop with recording software while Reeves calibrated the audio. Grace watched from the adjoining kitchen, still uncertain where her loyalties should lie. Remember, Reeves coached, start with Elena's death. Act shocked, concerned, then transition naturally to memories, to Sophie's disappearance. See if she reveals anything when she thinks you're vulnerable. Charles nodded, staring at Victoria's contact information on his phone. I've known this woman for 25 years, he said quietly. If she really took Sophie, if she killed Samuel and Elena, I never truly knew her at all. He pressed dial, putting the call on speaker. Victoria answered on the first ring. Charles, finally, where are you? At home, he lied smoothly. I needed time to think, Victoria. What happened to Elena? Police are calling it vehicular sabotage. Her brake lines were severed. My God, who would do such a thing? Victoria's voice turned cautious. Someone who didn't want her talking about the past. Obviously, Charles. This is why I've been calling. The police will make connections to Sophie's case. It's been 22 years, Charles replied, feigning confusion. Why would anyone still care about silencing Elena now? A pause. Because you reopened the investigation. Because that girl, Grace Foster, has been asking questions. About that, Charles said, his tone deliberately casual. The DNA results came in today. And, Victoria's voice sharpened, Grace is Sophie. The silence stretched for several seconds. That's impossible, Victoria finally said. Sophie is gone. The DNA doesn't lie, Victoria. My daughter has been found. Did you test paternity or just maternity? Victoria's question was pointed, dangerous. Charles glanced at Reeves, who nodded encouragingly. The test showed anomalies in the paternal markers. Samuel, Victoria breathed, the single word heavy with implication. Yes. Another lengthy silence. Where is she now, Charles? Why do you want to know? To protect you, of course, like I always have. Charles leaned closer to the phone. Like you did 22 years ago. Victoria's laugh was brittle. I don't know what you mean. I think you do. The night Sophie disappeared. The night you were seen carrying a bundle to your car. Who told you? Victoria stopped abruptly. Elena. She was always watching, interfering. Did you take my daughter, Victoria? Charles, you're upset. We shouldn't have this conversation now. Meet me at the house, and we'll talk privately. I need to know. Charles insisted. Did you kidnap Sophie? Not over the phone, Victoria hissed. Tomorrow night is the Foundation Gala. Everyone will be watching us. We must present a united front until we decide how to handle this situation. What situation? My daughter being found? Don't be naive. Victoria's voice hardened. The implications. Charles, Samuel's paternity claim coming to light after all these years. The questions about Sophie's disappearance. We need a strategy. We, Charles repeated softly, as if we're in this together. We've always been in this together, Victoria replied. Everything I've ever done was for you, for us. Charles closed his eyes briefly. I'll see you at the gala tomorrow night. We'll talk then. When he ended the call, the room remained silent for several moments. She all but confessed, Reeves said finally. Margaret nodded. It's still not definitive evidence, but combined with the hotel footage and Elena's testimony, it's enough for the police to bring her in for questioning. No, Charles said firmly. Not yet, tomorrow night at the gala. I'll get her to confess everything. With witnesses present, with irrefutable evidence, he turned to Grace. Are you willing to confront her publicly? Grace considered the man who had raised her for 4 years, who had searched for her for 22 more, who was not her biological father, but claimed her as his daughter nonetheless. Yes, she decided. It's time for the truth to come out. All of it, she added, meeting Charles's gaze meaningfully, His expression revealed nothing but determination. "All of it," he agreed. The Whitaker Foundation annual gala transformed the Chicago Museum of Contemporary Art into a glittering showcase of wealth and philanthropy. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light over the city's elite as they mingled among modern art installations. Champagne flutes in hand, a string quartet played in the corner, their classical melodies nearly drowned by the polite hum of networked conversations. Grace observed it all from the museum's mezzanine, feeling like an imposter in the midnight blue gown Charles had purchased for her. Detective Reeves stood nearby in a rented tuxedo that couldn't quite disguise his utilitarian bearing, while Margaret Wilson charmed a judge across the room, keeping him positioned near their planned confrontation area. "Nervous?" James asked, appearing at Grace's side with a glass of water. The elderly butler had been briefed on their plan and had insisted on being present. "Terrified," Grace admitted. "But ready," James nodded solemnly. "I should have spoken up 22 years ago. Perhaps you would have grown up where you belonged. Or perhaps not." Grace spotted Charles entering the gala, commanding immediate attention in his tailored tuxedo. "We still don't know the whole truth. Miss Foster." James hesitated. "Miss Whitaker, whatever happens tonight, remember that good people sometimes make terrible mistakes when they believe they're protecting those they love." Before Grace could question this cryptic advice, Charles ascended the stairs to join them. "Victoria just texted. She's arriving in 15 minutes. His expression was grim, but resolute. "Are you certain you want to go through with this?" "Absolutely," Grace replied. "No more secrets." They reviewed the plan one final time. Grace would remain out of sight until Charles had engaged Victoria in conversation near the central sculpture garden. Margaret would ensure key board members were positioned nearby as witnesses. Reeves would record everything while prepared to intervene if things escalated. "The evidence package," Charles confirmed. Reeves patted his jacket pocket. "All here. Hotel security footage of Victoria entering Elena's room, phone call recording, Elena's journal, and photographs." As they separated to take their positions, Charles caught Grace's hand. "Whatever happens," he said softly, "I want you to know that every day I searched for you was genuine. Every private investigator I hired, every lead I followed, it was all real." Grace squeezed his hand in return, but made no promises. Trust had become a luxury she couldn't afford. From her concealed position behind a massive sculpture, Grace watched Victoria's entrance. The woman commanded attention in a crimson gown that seemed designed to ensure all eyes followed her movement across the marble floor. At 62, Victoria remained striking. Silver-streaked dark hair elegantly styled, posture regal, smile practiced to perfection. Charles intercepted her near the champagne fountain, kissing her cheek with remarkable composure given the circumstances. Grace couldn't hear their exchange, but Victoria's body language betrayed tension beneath her social veneer. She glanced around frequently, clearly searching for someone, likely Grace herself, after several minutes of what appeared to be increasingly intense conversation. Charles guided Victoria toward the prearranged location. He raised his champagne glass slightly. The signal. Grace took a deep breath and stepped out from her hiding place, making her way purposefully toward the couple. She felt, rather than saw, the subtle shift in the room as guests noticed her approaching Charles and Victoria. The resemblance between Grace and the photos of Elizabeth Whitaker displayed throughout the museum was unmistakable. Victoria saw her coming, even from several feet away. Grace caught the flash of recognition, followed immediately by carefully masked panic. "Grace?" Charles greeted her warmly. "I'd like you to meet Victoria Hale, my business partner." "We've met," Grace replied coolly, "though Ms. Hale probably remembers me as the maid she fired." Victoria's smile remained fixed, though her eyes had turned to ice. "What an unexpected surprise. Charles didn't mention you'd be attending." "I wouldn't miss it," Grace said. After all, the Whitaker Foundation was established in honor of Charles's missing daughter. She touched her necklace deliberately. "Sophie." Victoria's gaze locked onto the silver S pendant. A muscle twitched in her jaw. "An interesting piece of jewelry," Victoria remarked. "Rather similar to one I remember." "Identical, in fact," Charles interjected, as the DNA test confirmed yesterday. The nearby conversations hushed as guests became aware of the tension unfolding. Margaret had positioned several board members within earshot, their attention now fully captured. "DNA test," Victoria repeated, her composure slipping momentarily. "Grace is Sophie," Charles declared, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "My daughter has come home." A ripple of gasps and murmurs spread through the gathering. Victoria's face had gone pale beneath her makeup. "That's wonderful news, Charles," she managed, her voice strained. "Though perhaps this isn't the venue for such a personal revelation." "Why not?" Grace challenged. "The Whitaker Foundation was created to help find missing children. What better place to announce that Sophie Whitaker has been found?" Victoria's eyes darted around, noting the growing audience. "Charles, we should discuss this privately. I think we've had enough privacy surrounding Sophie's disappearance," he replied firmly. 22 years of secrets is enough." Victoria took a step back. "What exactly are you implying?" "Not implying, stating." Grace moved closer. "You kidnapped me from my nursery on June 15th, 22 years ago. You arranged for me to be delivered to Helen Foster, then systematically eliminated anyone who might expose your crime." The room had gone completely silent. Even the musicians had stopped playing, aware that something momentous was unfolding. "These are outrageous accusations," Victoria hissed. "Charles, control your supposed daughter. We have evidence," Grace continued relentlessly. "Elena Martinez provided testimony before you had her killed yesterday. James Sullivan saw you carrying me from the house wrapped in a blanket. Security footage shows you entering Elena's hotel room hours before her accident." Victoria's expression hardened into something dangerous. "You have nothing but the ramblings of a disgruntled former employee and a senile old butler." Detective Reeves stepped forward, phone in hand. "We also have this recorded conversation from yesterday, where you all but confessed taking Sophie to protect Charles." For a moment, Victoria seemed cornered. Then, remarkably, she laughed. A sharp, bitter sound that cut through the tension. "Protect Charles." She shook her head. "Oh, my dear girl, you have it all backward. I was protecting you." Charles stiffened. "Victoria, no more lies." "Charles," Victoria snapped. "You wanted the truth exposed. Let's expose all of it." She turned to the gathered crowd. "Charles Whitaker, Chicago's grieving father, beloved philanthropist. Did any of you ever wonder why Samuel Valenti's paternity claim never became public? Why the police investigation into Sophie's disappearance stalled so conveniently?" "Victoria, don't do this," Charles warned. She ignored him, focusing on Grace. "Ask yourself, who had the most to lose if Samuel proved he was your father? Who stood to lose custody? Reputation and half his company if the truth came out? Who benefited most from both your disappearance and Samuel's convenient accident?" The implication hung in the air like poison. "Charles knew," Victoria continued. "Not the details, not the how. He maintained plausible deniability. But he knew you needed to disappear before Samuel's paternity suit went public." Grace turned to Charles, searching his face for denial. She found only anguish. "Is it true?" she demanded. "Did you know?" "Not like she's suggesting," Charles insisted. "Victoria came to me after Samuel threatened the lawsuit. She said she could handle the situation, make the problem go away. I thought she meant legally, through settlement or intimidation. I never imagined." His voice broke. "When you disappeared, I was genuinely devastated. But you suspected," Grace pressed. "You must have." The pain in Charles's eyes answered before his words could. "I had moments of suspicion, but I couldn't bear to believe it. And then Victoria was there, helping me search, organizing the foundation, being my rock. It was easier to believe the lie." Victoria's smile was razor thin. "We protected each other. That's what partners do." "And Samuel Valenti," Grace asked. "Did you arrange his accident too?" "I arranged nothing," Victoria replied coldly. "I merely ensured certain problems disappeared. For Charles. Always for Charles." With startling swiftness, Victoria reached into her clutch and withdrew a small vial. "And now you're the problem," she said, lunging toward Grace. Charles moved faster than anyone expected, throwing himself between them. Victoria's hand, holding what appeared to be a syringe extracted from the vial, plunged into Charles's shoulder instead of Grace's arm. "No!" Victoria screamed as Charles staggered backward. Detective Reeves tackled Victoria to the marble floor as chaos erupted around them. Guests scrambled away in panic while security rushed toward the commotion. Grace caught Charles as he collapsed, his breathing already labored. "Antidote," he gasped, looking toward Victoria. "She always has an antidote. Where is it?" Grace demanded as Reeves handcuffed a struggling Victoria. "What did you inject him with?" Victoria's face contorted with anguish as she watched Charles convulse. "It was meant for you. Only you. He wasn't supposed to interfere." "The antidote," James shouted, gripping Victoria's shoulders. "Where is it?" "Inside locket," Victoria sobbed, all pretense abandoned. "Around my neck." Margaret retrieved the locket, fumbling to open it as Charles's breathing became more erratic. Inside was a tiny glass ampule filled with clear liquid. "How do we administer it?" Grace cried, cradling Charles's head. "Injection," Victoria whispered. "Directly into vein, quickly." As paramedics burst through the museum doors, Grace held Charles's increasingly limp hand, his eyes locked on hers, trying to communicate something vital before darkness claimed him. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in the hospital corridor where Grace had spent the past 6 hours, moving only to refill her tasteless coffee from the nurse's station. Margaret sat nearby, handling the barrage of calls from board members and reporters as news of the gala's dramatic events spread through Chicago's elite circles. James had finally been convinced to go home after midnight, his aged frame unable to withstand the vigil any longer. Detective Reeves appeared from the elevator, his suit rumpled and tie loosened. "Victoria's being processed downtown. She's confessed to everything. Sophie's kidnapping, arranging Samuel Valenti's accident, Elena Martinez's murder." He rubbed his bloodshot eyes. 22 years of crimes, all to maintain her position in Charles's life. And Charles, Grace asked, how complicit was he? According to Victoria, he never explicitly ordered or approved any of it. She claims she acted on her own interpretation of what would protect him. Reeves shrugged. Whether he willfully remained ignorant is harder to prove. The double doors at the end of the hallway swung open as a doctor emerged, still wearing surgical scrubs. "Miss Whitaker," he called. Grace stood, still unfamiliar with the name. "Yes. How is he?" "Stable. For now." The toxin was a derivative of ricin, extremely potent but slow-acting. The antidote counteracted the worst effects, but his system has suffered significant stress. The next 24 hours will be critical. "Can I see him?" The doctor hesitated. Briefly, "He's conscious but weak." Grace followed him through antiseptic corridors to the ICU, where Charles lay surrounded by monitors and IV lines. His normally commanding presence had diminished, his skin ashen against the white sheets. "Grace," he whispered, extending a trembling hand. She approached cautiously, still uncertain whether to view him as victim or accomplice. "The doctors say you'll recover." "Victoria?" he asked, voice barely audible. "In custody, she confessed to everything." Charles closed his eyes briefly. "I should have seen it all those years." "You didn't want to see it," Grace said, the accusation gentle but unmistakable. "No, I didn't." His admission came with surprising steadiness. When you disappeared, part of me suspected Victoria might be involved. But facing that meant facing Samuel's paternity claim, losing you legally instead of just physically. A tear slipped down his cheek. It was easier to play the grieving father, to search without finding. "So you knew." "Not with certainty. I created a space of deliberate ignorance." He gripped her hand with unexpected strength. "But my grief was real, Grace. My love for you is real, biological or not. You were my daughter from the moment you were born." Grace studied the man who had raised her for her first 4 years, who had seemingly searched for her while simultaneously avoiding finding her. Complex emotions churned within her. Anger, compassion, confusion. "I need the complete truth," she said finally. "About everything. About Samuel Valenti. About who I really am." Charles nodded weakly. "You deserve that much." He spoke haltingly, gathering strength as the story unfolded. Elizabeth, his wife, had indeed had an affair with Samuel during a difficult period in their marriage. When she became pregnant, both men believed they could be the father, Elizabeth died in childbirth before a paternity test could be conducted, and Charles, grief-stricken, claimed the baby as his own. Samuel backed off initially, out of respect for Elizabeth's memory and my loss, Charles explained. We maintained our business partnership. Though things were strained, as you grew and began resembling him more clearly, his desire to claim you intensified. 2 months before Sophie's disappearance, Samuel had secretly obtained a DNA sample and confirmed his paternity. He confronted Charles with the results and threatened a public lawsuit for custody. Victoria witnessed the confrontation, Charles continued. Later, she came to me with a proposal. She could make the problem go away. I assumed she meant through legal channels, perhaps finding dirt on Samuel to force him to back down. His voice faltered. I never explicitly asked for details. I didn't want to know. When Sophie vanished, Charles had been genuinely distraught, but as the investigation proceeded, subtle inconsistencies in Victoria's behavior raised his suspicions. Rather than confront her, he channeled his energy into a massive public search, one that Victoria carefully ensured would never succeed. After Samuel's death, Victoria became indispensable, my right hand in business, my support system. Charles's expression reflected decades of self-deception. I convinced myself my suspicions were paranoia born of grief, and Victoria never slipped, not once in 22 years, until you appeared. The monitors beeped steadily as Grace absorbed this confession. Why did you agree to DNA testing when I showed up? Weren't you afraid of what it might reveal? By then, the statute of limitations on most potential charges had expired, and I truly wanted to know if you were Sophie, regardless of biological paternity. His eyes met hers directly. I never stopped loving you. Grace, never stopped hoping you were alive and well somewhere, even while ensuring I wouldn't be found. Charles winced at the direct accusation. My failures as a father are unforgivable. I chose willful blindness over difficult truth. A nurse entered to check Charles's vitals, indicating Grace's time was running short. There's one more thing, Charles said, as the nurse adjusted his IV. Samuel Valenti's parents, your biological grandparents, they never believed the accident story. They tried to investigate but were blocked at every turn. Likely by Victoria's connections, they eventually moved to Arizona, where I believe your grandfather is still alive. Grace absorbed this information. Another branch of family she'd never known existed. What happens now? She asked. Legally? Charles sighed. Victoria will face multiple charges: kidnapping, murder, attempted murder. As for my complicity, that's for the courts to decide. I meant between us, Grace clarified. Charles studied her face, the face that had haunted his dreams for 22 years. That's entirely up to you. I have no right to ask for forgiveness or a relationship. I can only offer the truth, finally, and my profound regret. 3 months later, Grace stood at the edge of Lake Michigan, watching autumn leaves dance across the water's surface. The legal aftermath of the gala night had been complex but conclusive. Victoria had pleaded guilty to multiple charges in exchange for a reduced sentence, sparing everyone a public trial. Charles had been granted immunity in exchange for testimony about Victoria's crimes. Though the court of public opinion remained divided on his moral culpability, Whitaker Enterprises had survived the scandal, with Charles stepping down as CEO but remaining on the board. The Whitaker Foundation had been restructured with a new mission focused specifically on reuniting families separated by crime, corruption, or circumstance. Grace heard footsteps on the gravel path behind her and turned to see James approaching, leaning more heavily on his cane than he had 3 months ago. They're waiting for you, Miss Grace, he said gently. She nodded, taking one last moment with the peaceful lake view before following him to the waiting car. Inside sat Charles, still gaunt from his recovery, but improving steadily, and beside him, an elderly man with familiar eyes, Samuel Valenti Sr., her biological grandfather, who had flown in from Arizona upon learning of her existence. Ready? Charles asked as Grace settled into her seat. As I'll ever be. The car wound through Chicago traffic toward the courthouse, where Grace would legally reclaim her identity as Sophie Elizabeth Whitaker, while acknowledging her biological paternity through an amended birth certificate. The press would be there, the story of her remarkable return still captivating public interest. I spoke with Margaret this morning, Charles mentioned as they neared downtown. The paperwork for the foundation's new direction is complete. We'll announce the first grants next week. Grace nodded. After much deliberation, she had agreed to serve on the foundation's board, using her unique perspective to guide its mission. It was one of several careful steps toward building a relationship with Charles, not as the idealized father-daughter reunion he might have hoped for, but as two adults connected by a complex past and cautiously exploring a potential future. "I received another letter from your grandmother in Arizona," Charles added. "She's eager to meet you when you're ready." "Soon," Grace promised. She was gradually connecting with the Valenti side of her family, piecing together the missing parts of her identity. As the courthouse came into view, Grace touched the silver S pendant still hanging around her neck. It no longer represented just Sophie or Sophia, but also Samuel, acknowledging all parts of her heritage, complicated as it was. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "when I first discovered who I might be, I thought finding the truth would bring instant clarity, that everything would suddenly make sense. And now," Charles asked, "now I understand that truth isn't a destination. It's a starting point." She met his gaze steadily. "The past can't be changed, but we choose what to build from it." James smiled approvingly from the front seat as the car pulled to a stop. Outside, reporters gathered on the courthouse steps, cameras ready to capture the next chapter in the Whitaker saga. Grace took a deep breath and reached for the door handle. The girl who had entered Whitaker Mansion as a maid seeking answers had found them. Painful, complicated, imperfect answers that had shattered illusions but offered something more valuable in return: authenticity. As she stepped into the sunlight, Grace Foster and Sophie Whitaker merged into a single identity, not defined by either name alone, but by the strength she'd found in uncovering her truth and the freedom to determine her own future.